Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Science with Jane. It is May 17th. It is a Sunday, and our topic today is going to be all about seeds. So seeds are really cool because they're baby plants packaged very nicely by the mommy plant, and there's so much to learn about them. So here we go. Here are some suggested other resources you might want to check out. I discovered this new podcast called Ear Snack, which is kind of a funny way to say it, but basically it's you don't eat ears, you actually listen to little tiny podcasts about science topics, so you should check that out. It's kind of for younger kids, but still interesting. They have an episode about seeds. And then I put some Brain Pop Jr. and Brain Pop about plant growth and plant life cycle, because if you're talking about seeds, you're also talking about plant life cycles. Okay, so we are starting off with our first experiment, which is a seed germination experiment. And we're asking the question, what do seeds need to grow? So a couple facts. First of all, a seed contains both the baby plant and the food supply for that baby plant to start to grow. It's like a little package. And then germination is the science word for a seed starting to grow. One thing that I think is interesting about seeds is they're all different shapes and sizes. So I have here an acorn, which is a relatively big seed. And then I also have a smaller acorn, which is still kind of a big seed, but much smaller than this one. And they're from two different species of oak trees. A coconut is like a super giant seed. And then I also brought a sack filled with, I don't even know, like probably thousands of seeds. And these are from poppy flowers from my aunt. She gave it to me so I could grow some poppy flower plants. And those seeds, if you've ever eaten a poppy seed bagel, literally that's what they are. They're so tiny, which I don't even know if you can see that in my hand, but they're so tiny. But even still, and here I have it, I taped 3 to this piece of paper. Those 3 dots are poppy seeds right there. They're so little. But even still, whether you have a poppy seed or an acorn or a coconut, inside the seed is a baby plant and the food supply for that baby plant to start to grow. Okay, so that's what all seeds have in common. So to set up this experiment, I actually filmed this 10 days ago on May 7th. Today is May 17th. So I'm gonna stop this video. You can watch the how to set up your experiment video, and then you can come back for sort of what my experiment looks like now. Okay. So here's how we're going to set up our experiment. We're going to test to see what seeds need to germinate. Germinate means that they start growing. We're going to test if they need light or soil or water or air, okay? The seeds I'm going to use, and you can use whichever kind you have, are actually like from the grocery store, dry black beans. So if you have dry beans, those are really good to use because they tend to be big seeds, but any kind of seed you can do this experiment with. Okay, so I found these little tiny bags. You could use regular Ziploc bags. These were actually from like when you buy a shirt or something that has an extra button. That's what these bags are from. So maybe somewhere at home you have some of those. Otherwise, you can use a normal size Ziploc bag. Here's what you do. You take a bag. This one is very hard to open. I'm going to start with a different bag. Let's say I take this bag. I've already put in some soil. It is dry soil because I only want to test for soil. I don't want to test for soil plus water. So you might have to get some soil and let it dry out and then start your experiment. So I'm going to open up my bag and I'm going to put in 1 seed. Okay? And then I'm going to take some tape. You don't actually have to tape them to a board. You could just leave them somewhere where you can see them, or put them in like a bin. And I'm gonna tape this one under where it says soil, okay? And then I'm gonna take another bag. Hopefully I can open it. And I can't open it. It's horrible. Just kidding, it's not that horrible. And I'm gonna make this one my air. So this one, instead of closing it, after I put my seed in, I'm going to put my seed in. Then when I tape it, I'm going to tape it so that the top of the bag actually stays open. Okay, and I'm going to put it over here where it says air, right like that. Okay? All right, so then the bag is open to the air. Then, so you can see it right there. Then for water, I'm not gonna just pour water in because that could get really messy. I've taken a little bit of paper towel. It's like a rectangle of paper towel that will fit in my baggie. I already got it wet because I don't have like a faucet in the treehouse. And then, I'm gonna open my bag. I'm gonna put in the paper towel. This can be a little tricky because the paper towel is wet, so it sticks to things. You can kind of smush it in there. You can get like a pen or a pencil to help poke it in if you need to. And then I'm going to drop in my seed. And you do want to make sure that the seed is in contact with your paper towel. Sometimes the paper towel might dry out, like maybe there's a little hole in the bag or something. So if you notice that the paper towel is dry, you probably want to add a little bit of water during the course of your experiment. And I'm going to tape it where it says water. And then last, I need my bag for light. So I'm going to put in a seed, and I don't want to have it give it any air, so I'm going to seal it up. And then I'm going to tape it to where it says light. Now, of course, the way I have this set up now, all of these other ones are also getting light. And then that's not a good way to set up an experiment. So I have another piece of cardboard. So you will need some way to make, look, it's from pasta. You will need some way to make your soil and your water and your air samples dark. So one way to do that is to you could put them in a closed container or a drawer. I'm gonna just tape a piece of cardboard that I can lift up, that covers those up. So now I have my setup. If I wanna check on them, ooh, and I need to move this one up because I see it's poking out. But if I want to check on them, I can lift this up. So I'll move the one for air up a little bit so it gets blocked by the cardboard. And then when I'm done checking them, I flip this over. The one that gets light still gets light, and these stay in the dark. So we'll check back in about a week and see how they're doing. Okay, bye. All right, so now that you've set up your experiment, you're going to want to do step 4. Here it says to record your starting observations in the first row of the data table. So you put today's date whenever you start your experiment, what the seed and the light, the soil, the water, and the air look like. And then you wait a little while and record again. You could do this a couple times, like every 3 days or so. I waited a week and I could see results. And then what I'm going to show you now as results is actually 10 days after I started. Okay, so I would record that way down here. So if you don't want to know how this experiment ends, you should pause the video now and come back after you've done your experiment. Okay, I'll wait. I'm gonna pause. You gonna keep watching? Okay, here it is. So here is my experiment. So remember, I set this up and I blocked out all of them with this cardboard except for the one in the light. And you can see this one, the seed just looks like it did in the beginning. It has not started to germinate. So now I'm gonna lift up the flap and we'll look at the other seeds. Okay, so in my experiment, you can easily see the one with air, okay? The soil one's a little harder to see because it's into the soil, but I will separate it out for you. You can see that seed also did not start to germinate. But the seed that was in the water did start to germinate. So I'm going to take this one off the board, okay, and we'll look at it more carefully. So this seed really started to germinate. First of all, it got much bigger than the other seeds. Okay, so this is usually a first step. You can see the size. And they started off the same size, but what happens is the water soaks in and kind of swells up the seed. And that is one of the first steps for germinating. Then, I'm gonna pull this out of the baggie, hopefully. You will be able to see which plant part started to grow first for our germinating seed. I think I should have brought tweezers for this. There we go. Okay, so first of all, the outside part of the seed, which is called the seed coat, cracked open. So I will show you that, I hope. All right, So you can see the black part, which is why it's called a black bean, cracked open. So that's a first step, and usually you need water for that to happen. And then the root of the seed started to grow out, okay? Of the root of the baby plant started to grow out and started to grow. And at this point, if I wanted it to grow more, I could put it into a little bit of soil. I'd put the root part in, and then this other part, the above ground part, would start to grow, and I would start to see leaves, okay? So that is my result of after 10 days of setting up this experiment. So I'm gonna put that down right there. So if you wanted to record that in your data table, if you can't set up your own experiment, I had my air seed stayed the same, my soil seed stayed this is my light seed stayed the same, my soil seed stayed the same, my water seed definitely germinated. But my air seed, I'll put this back over here, also stayed the same, okay? So seeds need water to germinate. They can germinate without air, they can germinate without soil, and they can germinate without light. In fact, some seeds start germinating underground, so they definitely don't have any light. Now there's another thing that we didn't test, which is super important for seed germination, and that is the temperature. So seeds need to be at a certain warm enough temperature to start to germinate. And that's why springtime is so important for seeds. When it gets warm enough, they can start to grow. If it's too cold, they will not start to grow yet. The exact temperature depends on the different kinds of seeds. So that's another experiment you could do by experimenting with your freezer or the refrigerator, different temperatures. That would be really cool. Okay, so here's some talk it over questions for this experiment. What did the seeds need to germinate? Which part of the seed started to grow first? All right, now we're gonna go to another experiment or thing you can do. And again, you can do this either with your own seeds or you can do it along with things that I'm going to show you. So this is documenting a seed's life cycle. So you can pick a kind of seed, or you can do this along with the video for acorns if you want, because I've been finding acorns at like different stages of life cycles, so I'll show you those. So start a bunch of seeds germinating. Hint, do the activity on page 2 to learn about seed germination, or watch the whole video. So the hint is you're gonna need to put some water on your seeds. Wet paper towels over the seeds or around the seeds tend to be a good way to do that. And then a plastic baggie is useful because then all the water doesn't evaporate. All right, so do this part. In one of these circles, draw what your seed looks like before it starts to germinate. Label it number 1. So you could do that now with any kind of seed you have, or we're gonna do this with our big acorn that we looked at earlier. You could start with an acorn. So this is my big acorn that we're going to use. Okay, and you can draw that for number 1. You can pause the video. Okay. So you're gonna label it number 1. Wait about a week and then look at your seeds and then make a drawing in the next circle and label it number 2. Draw an arrow from step 1 to step 2. Keep adding to your seeds life cycle drawings. If you end up with a plant that grows its own seeds, you can draw an arrow back to number 1, and that's why it's a cycle. So let's say you grew your beans. Beans grow relatively quickly, right? And you got to the point where you had a bean plant that was making its own seeds. Well, then you would draw a line, an arrow, connecting that drawing of the whole plant with the seeds on it back to the seed that you started with. I'm going to show you what the life cycle for an oak tree looks like, okay? So remember, this is number 1. We started with a seed. And then I've been noticing, because it's been spring and rainy where I live, that I have seen some oak trees germinating. I'm gonna hold this, I'm gonna hold the paper in the back so you can see it better. I found this one right next to a brook, kind of near my house. And you can see the part I'm holding is the part that was the acorn. And then you can see the root starting to grow out and the little tiny baby leaves starting to come out too. Now, inside the actual acorn part, the part that like a squirrel would eat if it ate an acorn, or like if you ate a different kind of nut, if you're not allergic, the part that you would mostly eat, that's the food supply for this baby plant. So it's packed into the seed. It's so cool. That's what it needs to grow besides the water. in the bean, the big part of the bean that we eat is the food supply for that baby plant that becomes the bean. Okay, so we have, this is kind of like stage 2. This would be like stage 1. Ah, there goes my acorn of the acorn. And then time goes by and it grows a little bit more. So I have another one to show you. This is actually not from the same kind of acorn because I couldn't find it, but this is another little baby oak tree from a smaller kind of acorn. It looks like more the size of like this kind of acorn, but you can see the leaves have opened up more. I'm going to compare, and the roots have grown more. These roots, the roots here kind of are covered by a lot of soil, but look how opened up those nice leaves are. Okay, now I'm going to show you an even further along one. And in this one, I can't see the acorn anymore. There's just the root. The part that was the acorn has fallen off. And the leaves are even bigger. I'm gonna hold these up. Okay, so we went from, ooh, this is gonna be tricky because I only have 2 hands. We went from just starting to germinate, a little bit of germinating and growing, and then this other one is much bigger, okay? And the acorn part is no longer attached. So after this, I can't really hold these things because they would need to be in the ground. And I'm gonna plant these in my yard so I get some oak trees if the squirrels don't dig it up to eat the acorn going forward. But I have some photos for you that show oak trees around my house at different stages of their life cycle. Okay, so you can watch those photos right now. Here's the next size up oak tree. I planted it last Arbor Day. Here's a tall, skinny oak tree, kind of hard to see with all the other things that's in my yard. It doesn't give acorns yet. And here's an oak tree in my neighbor's front yard. It gives lots of acorns every year. Okay, and that's sort of the story of an oak tree life cycle. So all plants have life cycles, so no matter which plant you pick, if you wait long enough, if you can, or you can look up pictures of the grown-up plant for when it has seeds, and you can fill in the steps of the plant life cycle. All right, I hope you guys have a great day. This will probably be the last Science with Jane video for a little while because I'm getting into summertime. I hope you are too. But I've so enjoyed making all these videos and doing fun science stuff. So I'll see you later. Bye.